All set, yeah.
Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob Podcast. We took a couple weeks off, but we are back at it. And I've got my buddy Alex across the pond on the other end of the line. Let's check in with him and jump into today's show. What's going on, buddy?
Hey man, what's up? Happy to be back. Of course, it's been a while, but yeah, great to be back on the podcast. I missed it. I missed you. I know you've been to Vegas for a couple days. How did you like it?
Well, you already know I'm not the biggest fan of Vegas, so but no, it was good. I mean, we had a family member getting married up there at the little white chapel, so they did the marriage thing, and they're young kids. They're like 26 years old, so it was cool to see them enjoying their time there and the experience, and got to spend a little time around the pink Cadillac and the little white chapel and take some, cheesy photos in front of all the Vegas nonsense, and spend way too much money on food, and even soft drinks are like $7 for a bottle of Coke. So it was awesome. But it's Vegas is Vegas, and to me it's just funny because it just reminds me that humans aren't too far from primates. Because at the end of the day, anywhere you can have someone in front of a flashing light or a water fountain or a mirror, they can pretty much occupy their time with amazement, which is kind of funny. So yeah, it was all good, brother.
But I gotta say, it is quite impressive when you get there for the first time. To be honest, right? Like it's actually like that one strip. But when you see, all these hotels and we have like roller coasters coming out of them, and all these basements full of these kind of slot machines.
Yeah.
That's definitely impressive when you see it for the first time.
Yeah, I think I think it just all depends on your frame of reference, right? Like for me, growing up, I always looked at towns like Vegas or LA or Palm Springs, like these Western sort of, I guess you would say, like traditional towns that you think about West as being sort of classic, old school, like Hollywood type stuff, glitz and glam. When you see it, when you have that impression, like at least that was me growing up, I had that impression that that's what it was. When you go see it and you see it's not really that in real life, for me, it's a little bit of a letdown. It's like, okay, well, it's nothing like that. There's no glitz and glam here, really. A lot of desperate people spending a lot of money they don't have on shit they don't need, and it's old people spending their, their kids' inheritance in the slot machine kind of a thing. And then, there's 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 10,000 high rollers there who actually know how to gamble and enjoy it. But, for the most part, to me, it's like cheap dopamine, and it just reminds me that human beings are sucked into that stuff on a regular basis. And, we're only, a few bits of genetic code from a monkey. So that's kind of what it reminds me of. And, honestly, I think the areas around it are much more interesting, going to the dam, the Hoover Dam, the history there, the history of the area. The Mob Museum was super cool. We went and did that. It basically took the entire afternoon in the Mob Museum, and learned a lot about the area and, basically its founding and what it originally looked like, because it looks nothing like it did from its original days, obviously. I mean, basically the whole town sprang up around these natural springs. So there was a natural water supply nearby, and of course the Colorado River was 30 miles away, which is why they dammed it up and created the massive lake there, Lake Mead. But all of that stuff to me is way more interesting than being stuck in traffic on the strip, watching lights flash and like big time fountains squirt water into the air. To me, that doesn't do anything for me, right? Like that's the touristy trap stuff, and I'm not into that. I would rather see how real people live and learn a little bit about the area. And that's not to say those things can't be fun or aren't fun. Like we had good times with family, of course, but after the thing for me is like after I've seen a thing or been exposed to it, it's very difficult for me to see it a second time and think, oh wow, this is brand new, because after you've seen a fountain, okay, it's a fountain, it's cool, it goes off in time and it makes cool little shapes. Or after you've seen Gordon Ramsay's little fire thing in front of his restaurant, it's like, okay, that's cool. Or after you've seen the Ferris wheel or the Sphere, After you've seen it, it's like, okay, that's cool. It's just never going to be as cool the second time, right? And Vegas is one of those towns that has the one up problem. It's never going to be able to one up itself, really, because it's just so over the top already that anything anything that they do is just like on par or less than what they've done in the past. So it's one of those things, man. Like once the dopamine wears off or the cheap dopamine wears off, it's like, okay, well, here we spent a lot of money. There's half naked chicks on the sidewalk, and one block from the strip, everybody's broke, and there's bums on every corner. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's true. I remember when I got there. I mean, the thing is, it's like the movies, right? Like the movies are the reason I wanted to see it. You have like these famous movies all set in Vegas, like I don't know, Hangover, Fear and Loathing in Vegas, like all that crazy stuff, and you feel like, oh man, that city never sleeps. Like I need to visit it. And I remember when I first got there. The thing is, when you get there and it's like daytime, it's not that impressive, to be honest, but it kind of gets its flavor during nighttime, when it gets dark outside, and all the flashy lights are out there. But yeah, you're right, like it's something you need to see once, and when you leave you feel like, all right, like I'm good, like I don't need to come back. I think I'd rather go back to the Grand Canyon instead of visiting Vegas again. But yeah, I think there is like no bad thing about visiting it once and witness it. But yeah, definitely nothing you need to do twice. But yeah, let's before we actually we wanted to jump a little bit into art today as our little main topic here. But before we do that, I wanted to ask you, because it's I think it's news from yesterday. What are you going to do with the $2,000 Trump is gifting you?
Probably not much, because remember, if you remember when COVID sort of came into being, the government basically shut down all the small businesses. And at the time, we owned a CrossFit gym. I had another like marketing company that basically got shut down. And so, like, just to survive those times, the government issued temporary loans to businesses, right? So basically, any money he sends me, I'm just going to turn around and give back to the government. So it's just like, all right, well, I have this little loan with the government. I'm going to pay him off, and it's just more, it's bread and circus, man. It's just more of the same nonsense that Biden did, and it's not good for, it's not good for the dollar. It might be good for people in the short run in terms of, paying some bills, catching up a few things. But I mean, the truth is, like, every time they do this, they just expand the money supply. And that's almost, in a way, it's worse for the average person, because the average person doesn't understand how inflation works. And it's a invisible way that the government, through the help of the Fed, steals purchasing power from the people. So anytime they do this kind of thing, it sounds good and it's all, "Oh, okay, I'll get my little check or whatever." But at the end of the day, the net result is your purchasing power continues to fall, and that's not a good thing.
But didn't Trump announce that these payments will be made from tariffs revenue?
Yeah, that was part of the announcement as I read it. I haven't read the whole thing, to be honest with you. I'm not super familiar with it, but I think that was what he was trying to drive home. The question is, like, are they going to be able to collect the tariff revenue? I'm not sure that they will be, right? And if they make a promise absent the commitment to have it collected, then it has to come from somewhere, right? But if, like you said, it is truly coming from tariff revenue and it can be distributed to the people, okay, that's cool. But remember, we have a $37 trillion debt, deficit. So do we really need to send, the money out to the random people when we've got a $37 trillion deficit? Because that in and of itself would be inflationary by not paying off or addressing the problems at hand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. But the funny thing is, if you actually had a vote in the United States, and all the people could vote and either decide for getting $2,000 or paying debts, they'd probably choose the $2,000. So I mean, in the end, I get what Trump is trying to do here, but how does that even work? Like, do you have to apply for that, or will you just randomly get money sent to your bank account? How does it work?
Well, I don't know how they'll execute it in the past, like when Biden did the handouts and other presidents too have done the handouts. You just got to check in the mail. It's based on, in my experience, it was based on like whether or not you had paid your taxes. Like, are your taxes up to date, kind of a thing. Are you on the roll as being, a tax-paying citizen? I don't think there was a lot of fraud with that because I think on the last, well, honestly, I don't know under the Biden administration. I haven't looked at the fraud numbers, but previously, if you were a taxpayer and you could prove that you had your taxes up to date, that was the qualifying sort of line item that got you your payout. And so if they do the same thing this time around, I don't know. But I don't really know how else they would do it. Like it would have to be some sort of way of knowing that you're a citizen, some sort of way of knowing that that you don't owe the government money from taxes or what have you. So I'd assume it'd be something similar, but I don't know. I haven't looked at what the proposal is fully, because I mean I don't think it's set in stone yet. I think it was just like announced as an idea.
Yeah, let's see where all this goes. I mean, yeah, in the end, it's interesting, and the funniest part is that Crypto X is basically saying that this is going to be the start of the alt season because everyone is going to buy altcoins. It's so crazy. They always find reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's jump a little bit into the art side of life, and today we're talking about something I think artists struggle with all the time, but rarely say out loud. And you're actually you happen to be an artist as well, so it's great to have you today, as always. But yeah, the main question is, how do you decide what your art is worth? Not like in theory, not in textbooks, but you sitting there finishing a piece and thinking, okay, now what is the price? And that brings us to the question: what what makes art valuable, right? Like,
Mhm.
is it emotional? Is it like the time, the effort, or the skill you have? Is it the story? Like, what are your general thoughts on this?
It depends on what you're going for in terms of value. In terms of value, like monetary value, it's going to be based on demand. Like how much demand is there for your work and how much of your work is there to, sort of quell the demand. It's just simple supply and demand. From a standpoint of meaning, it changes though, right? Like if you see a piece that's very meaningful to you, and maybe you're the only person in the world that has an affinity for that particular meaning that piece is portraying to you, then you might be willing to pay what the artist's asking price is, no matter what that asking price is, because it's speaking to you in some way, shape, or form. Like you had to have it, right? And there are a few pieces that I've seen on chain that are like this. I've talked a lot about Anna's work. Like a lot of her work speaks to me, so I'm willing to pay for it. And I'll look and I'll see some of her other pieces, are for sale on some of the cheapo chains like Tezos or whatever. And, she's only asking a small amount of money for them, but they're not selling or they haven't all sold, right? But for me, like if I see a piece that is speaking to me, I understand the story, or I'm a big fan of the style or maybe the coloration, then I might be willing to pay up for it for a number of different reasons. And the value provision may have nothing to do with supply and demand. It might just speak to me personally, right?
Yeah, okay, but so does that mean you kind of said that value is dependent of audience? So that means if nobody buys a piece, it has less value?
In terms of monetary value, yes, 100%. Like, yeah, the thing that we all have to realize and come to, a full understanding of is like our bank account at all times is a 100% indicator of our value provision to the world. Now, you may disagree with that, but the facts are that people pay for value with money, right? You pay your electric bill, your gas bill, your cable bill, your car, your insurance, your house. You pay for these things with money, which is a representation of your life force that you've spent engaged in an activity. You've traded life force for a thing, right? And money is the way that you transfer that. So at all times, when you look at your bank account, that's exactly what the world thinks you're worth. And people need to wrap their mind around that, right? Like, it sounds really harsh. Like if you don't have much money, I'm not valuable to the world. Well, you might be very valuable to the world, but maybe you don't know how to communicate it. Maybe you're not good at selling. Maybe you're not good at marketing or getting your message out. Okay, well, that's a big percentage of your value provision to the world, is being able to communicate it, right? So it may not be that your particular skill set is invaluable, or your particular, offering in terms of product or service is invaluable, but you're not good at communicating it. Or else you should get good at communicating it, right? And so we have to realize these things. And when we start bumping up against the reality of, all right, my bank account is telling me the world is valuing me at X. Okay, there's a skill set that's tied to generating income or generating this money. What do I need to work on to make myself more valuable? Is it my communication? Is it my product? Is it my service offering? What is it that I need to work on to be perceived in the market as more valuable, right? Because again, value is perception in the mind of the buyer, which is why someone might look at my house and be like, okay, I'll give you 600 grand for your house, right? And somebody else might look at my house and be like, I wouldn't give you $50 for your house. I don't like your house. Your house is a piece of shit. And somebody else might be like, I really want to live in that neighborhood. I'll give you 800,000 for your house, right? So like, again, at the end of the day, a thing is worth what someone's willing to pay. And you can decide what the going rate in the marketplace is going to be based on history or based on comps, which is what we do in real estate. It's also what we do in art world, like if you're buying a Picasso and that particular Picasso had 50 prints, or, it was like a second run or a third run or a first run, like all of those different things matter in terms of valuation, because we're looking at comps of other work of similar, similar effort and similar creation style, right? So we can't ignore or escape this. And a lot of it comes down to those very simple ideas. And yes, if you are concerned about income as an artist, then yes, your value to the world will be determined, or I should say your value to yourself in terms of what you want to create in the world will be determined by the amount of money that you can bring in based on your skill set, in this particular case being art.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think the relationship with collectors heavily influences the value of your work. But we've been speaking a lot about Tezos art, and that it's kind of different than other NFT spaces. We see many artists sell their pieces for a couple bucks. What do you think? What makes Tezos art culture feel different from other chains?
I don't know that much about Tezos. I mean, obviously, is it Object? I think that mints on Tezos. I don't remember. But I think what it is right now we have a burgeoning population of artists online who are basically doing a good job of beating real world artists to chain. And they are building an audience. And a lot of times they surround themselves with other artists in the same circles or in the same sort of, connections on X, whether they know them or not. And they come together in an effort to support one another. Hey, I just did this piece, and then all the other artists who are connected to that one, no matter what the art looks like, it's always, oh, that's great. It's awesome. It's fantastic. There's never any critical thought put into the comments. It's just always good work. Like whatever the work is, it's always good work. And of course, that's not the case. So when you follow the link back to wherever they're selling it, whether it's on Object or Foundation or whatever the case may be, you can look at previous sales and you can see what the comps are, or you can see what they're asking for a particular print, and they in that specific moment are telling you what their artwork is worth to them because they're the ones who priced it, right? And likewise, when people do auctions and they set a reserve price, maybe the reserve price is $50 or $75 or $100, whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter. What they're telling you is this is the least amount of money I'm willing to accept for this piece because that's what I feel like it's worth in the marketplace, right? And when you don't spend your time trying to locate collectors who are willing to pay you for a piece that really speaks to them, but you spend your time in circles of artists who always just tell you that your shit is good no matter what it looks like, you're not going to find, or you're going to have a very hard time finding someone who's willing to pay you more or pay you in excess of what you've asked for previously. Because basically what they're doing is they're saying, I have this print, I can sell it for $2. I have 10 of them, so in this particular case, the artwork's worth $20 or whatever it is. That's not going to draw in a high-end collector who wants a print that's $2. They're going to want the piece to be on their own chain. They're going to want it to be exclusive to them. And they're going to want certain things that you can't get in a space where artists are just buying from each other to show support. It's not the same thing. And so what I encourage artists to do is spend time finding people who actually value the work, that actually resonate with the work, and who get the story and continue to tell the story. Because these are the people that will pay, $50 or $100 or $200 without even thinking about it, because the work that you're doing speaks to them and they want the exclusivity of owning that work, right? And so just like if I use Anna, for example, like Anna could do and other artists too, I'm just using Anna because I'm familiar with her work, but there's a lot of people online who are really, really good. But if Anna did like a physical gallery showing of her work, right? And we walk in and it's all Anna pieces. It's all like blacks and reds and grays or whatever, whatever that particular day happened to look like. Now these physical pieces are hanging on the wall. Now I walk in as a buyer or as an interested party and I like a particular piece. Well, I can buy the piece off the wall, which is going to be expensive, right? And I can take that piece off the wall and bring it home with me. And now no one else in the world can own that piece that was hanging on the wall because now I own it, right? When you do digital editions, you are not doing that at all. You're basically saying anybody in the world can own whatever number of these I allow to exist. So you take away the exclusivity, you take away the pricing, you take away the market, which in this case would be specifically people who are interested in buying quality art. And you remove the desire for that person who would normally pay up for the piece when you do it that way. So what I've been doing recently with artists, and I think I'm going to build a utility around this, is I'll go to the artist that has the piece and I'm like, listen, I really like this piece. I don't want to mint it on Tezos. I want you to burn it on Tezos and I want to own it. And I'll mint it into my own collection on Solana because I think all art should be on Solana, right? And, the artist will either say, yeah, that's cool, or no. And either way, I'm like, hey, I love you anyway. I want you to do what's right for you, but this is what's right for me. And so I won't be buying any editions on Tezos or any other chain for that matter, unless they're exclusive, unless there's some sort of marker, like what we're doing with Goodfellows, where we have marked prints. There's a known number of them. The IP rights come with them and translate with them. And I create exclusivity that way. So like if we go back to that gallery scenario where I take one of Anna's pieces off the wall, it's a one of one, it's mine. There'll never be another one like it. Even if she painted another one, it wouldn't be like the one I have because the brush strokes would be different, right? Or I go to the prints table at the gallery and she's got 21 prints, just like what we do with the 21s or the AI. And I buy one of her known numbered prints for a lesser amount of money, right? But I still have the exclusivity of knowing which print it is, who did it, and that there's a finite number of them that will never change, right? So in both of those scenarios, I'm creating scarcity. I'm just doing it in a different way. And I'm trying to supply and help the marketplace understand what that scarcity is with clearly defined rules. And so one of one means exactly that. It's a one of one. In an art gallery, that means you took a piece off the wall. A numbered print means it was a numbered print of a specific number of prints, right? And I picked one up while I was there at the gallery, and maybe I even had the artist sign it for an extra amount of money. And what we're doing with Goodfellas is we're mimicking that. So in both of these cases, the artist is showcasing their work to a group of buyers who understand the game that they're buying into, you know? And so if I pair that out into the real world, and again, like the digital world works best when it mirrors the real world. So the lack of scarcity in like unnumbered editions and just randomly spat out copies of the same thing. Like the thing that bugs me about digital editions is when an artist uploads a piece, they don't even upload, let's say they want 20 prints, they don't even upload the same file 20 times. They just upload the file once, and then the machine makes 20 copies of it, and it just spits out copy after copy. The artist has no hand in it, right? But when we do the 21s and we do the numbered prints in Goodfellas, like we literally create the 21 pieces. We go in and we physically number them, right? And then we physically add artist signature to number 21. So every one of those pieces has been touched by a human and has a story and metadata that goes with it. Digital editions on Object or Foundation does not do that. It's not the same thing. So what we really want to do is, if we want to sell art and we want to give it value, then we have to mirror what creates value in the real world, because humans aren't different just because they're interacting on CryptoX, if that makes sense.
Well, first of all, I love the approach that you have to, to bring art that you see and love, and maybe it's on Tezos to, find an agreement with the artist to bring it on Solana. But wouldn't that require to have some sort of agreement with the artist as well? Because otherwise, anyone could just mint a piece to, I don't know, Polygon or ADA or wherever. If like, you do not own IP rights if you haven't made that agreement, right?
That's right. And in this particular scenario, I'm not asking for IP rights. In the same way that if I went into a gallery, right, and I bought a piece off the wall, I'm not asking the gallery, the artist, for IP rights, because I own the physical copy, right? I own the physical manifestation of the work. I'm the only one in the world who owns it, right? The artist created it, the artist signed it. There's no way of removing the artist's name from the piece and still have it have any form of value. So it's basically stamped in time, that transaction. I bought it off the wall, artist created it, artist signed it. And anywhere that piece goes in the world, especially if it's a known artist, is going to be documented in some sort of book somewhere or some sort of catalog if it was sold at a gallery or an auction, right? So what I'm doing with the artist is the same thing. It's like, listen, this is what I want to buy from you. It's mirroring what we would do if I bought it off the wall in a gallery. I want your title, your description, I want your name, and I'm going to include all of that in my gallery so that wherever it goes in the world, you can point to it and link to it and show that it's your work, right? So unlike Object or Foundation, where they'll create different collections and there's sort of a history there of the piece, the history won't be there in that little spot because now it's in my personal gallery. I'm literally going to create a collection on Solana that is Jason's personal gallery. I don't know what I'm going to call it yet. And then when I mint it, I'll mint it into that collection, and you'll literally see my collection expand as I bring in more and more art, right? And I'll do that for some of the pieces that I want to make for myself that may or may not be suitable for our community, some 21s pieces, and it'll just continue to grow. But those pieces aren't necessarily meant for sale. They're not necessarily meant for, like public offerings, although those are certainly options. Just like if someone walked into my home and they saw 5 pieces of art on the wall and they're like, I really like that piece, would you consider an offer, right? So the agreement that I make with the artist is that their name, title, description travels with the piece just like it would in the real world travel with the piece that I took off the wall.
Yeah, that perfectly makes sense. What I always wondered is, if you look at all the artists on Tezos, and I mean, if you get in touch with crypto for the very first time, Tezos is not a chain that, is very popular and well known. So what do you think draws artists to Tezos in the first place? Do you think it's like the low fees or the community, or I don't know, maybe they look for other artists and see what they do? Because it feels like, to me, it feels like that low pricing is almost like some sort of community tradition, right? You create something and then you look on Object or any other Tezos marketplace. How much do other artists charge for their art? And is my art better than theirs? And if not, like, I cannot take more than $2, right? So it's gotten some sort of tradition. What do you think is the reason so many artists get drawn into that?
Well, I think you laid it out right there. I mean, it's tradition. And, we talked about Vegas at the top of the hour, or the top of the show, which happened to be the top of the hour. But the thing is, humans will behave in an environment like they're supposed to behave in an environment unless they're really, really self-aware. We talked about this with grown children getting around their parents. The 50-year-old child of the 70-year-old parents still acts like the 10-year-old child of the 30-year-old parents, because that was always his role in the house or her role in the house, and they fall into that role when they get around those people. They're triggers for that, right? In the same way that Vegas is, triggers moronic behavior in poor people. And this is one of the reasons I don't necessarily appreciate it. So, if you have a lot of money and you go to Vegas and you're walking around Paris, and you're looking at the fake ceiling with the clouds painted on it and the blue sky, and you're like, oh, this is really, really cool, right? And you get sucked into that, and next thing you know, it's like, oh, I'm thirsty. And you pull up to the local, junk shop there, and you pick out, like my wife likes Diet Pepsi. So she grabbed a Diet Pepsi, $7. $7 for a bottle of Diet Pepsi is like 4 times what it would cost even at a convenience store, and like 5 times what it would cost at a Walmart, and like 8 times what it would cost in the context of being in a package of Diet Pepsi, right? But, you're there. What are you going to do? Drive 20 minutes to go half a mile down the strip in traffic to the local convenience store to buy one for $5? No. You're there. You're going to spend the extra money because that's what people do in that environment, right? The same way people pay $10 for, a Diet Coke when you go to the movie theater. That's what you do. It's just part of that environment. And it's the same thing. Humans are pack animals, and so we all act the way we're supposed to act. Again, absent self-awareness in most of these situations, because it's just the easiest thing to do, right? So if I have like I said, a group of artists online, and I post a piece, and I have an agreement with these 5 or 10 people, they're always going to comment, they're always going to say something positive. And, maybe they're giving me constructive criticism behind the scenes, which would be super valuable. And publicly they're praising me so that I get more attention. That would be ideal. But in most cases, I'm guessing what happens is it's just everything you do is good because, again, I don't know you. I don't want to piss you off. I don't want to lose the relationship because there's really no investment. I don't know what you look like. You don't know what I look like. And when there's low investment, it's really easy to cut bait and run. So you say positive things. You see your buddies or your friends mint on that platform. You see what they ask, right? And so you just do what they do. It's like that great line from A Few Good Men, where the one soldier is being interviewed by Tom Cruise's character, and he's like, well, how did you know where to go eat lunch? And the soldier goes, well, I just followed the crowd at chow time. Right? It's like that's what people do. They just follow the crowd at chow time. Like, where's the food? I'm just going to follow people wherever they're going at dinner time. I'll find the food, right? And that's just the way it is. So, if you were in a group of people, imagine this, right? Like, let's say me and you and like 8 other artists are all in the same group, right? And let's say I put out a piece, and everybody else has put out a piece, and it's like, oh, let's go to Tezos, let's go to Foundation, let's go to Object, let's go whatever, let's list the piece, right? And everybody in the group lists their piece for like $3 or $4 or $5, and there's 20 editions, right? And I'm like, I'm going to list mine for 100, right? Well, immediately the group is going to be like, what are you doing? You're not one of us. Like, we're all listing for $5. Are you saying you're better than we are? Like literally, this is the human's thought process. Like, are you saying you're better than we are because you're listing yours for more? Right? We all started at the same time. We all have the same experience. Why are you doing that? You're not going to sell it, right? And then, of course, part of the group mentality is if you want to be part of a group, you have to think like the group. So if they're doing $5 a print, then I got to do $5 a print, or else they might, have something to say about that. So yeah, I mean, you laid it out perfectly. It's just, that's what the group's doing. So that's the expectation. Just like if I took, let's say, I don't know, one of Christine, we'll use Scarce Creatures. Like I took one of Christine's pieces and I went to Sotheby's, or I went to Christie's auction house. And I'm like, this is a world famous artist, Christine, and this is her piece, right? Christie's is not going to sell it for $5 because that's not what they do in that environment. They sell it for thousands. It's 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, right? That's that environment. And so if I want to play in that environment, I play by that environment's rules, and Christie's is not going to devalue their brand by selling a piece of art for $5, right? So I mean, I think really at the end of the day, when you think about it, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. But like on the other hand, like what would you recommend anyone to do? Maybe, creating art and starting on Tezos and, kind of having the fear of not selling. Because like in the end, you're also kind of dependent of it because, what artists do is they basically, use their socials and of course show when art is being sold and shout out collectors and all that. This is part of their marketing, right? For example, I know that you acquired a piece from Ulika, I think, and I actually when I saw your post, I was checking out her timeline, and there was actually one post that I just wanted to quote that she made on November 9 yesterday. So she created a piece and she wrote, "Good morning, fam. I'm sad that even for four Tezos, my art that I drew with my own hands on paper, no one wants it. Although why no one needs it? A question mark. I do." So she's basically, showing that she's sad that no one wants her art for like a couple bucks, which is to me, it's like a weird way of trying to sell it, right? Like trying to get empathy or whatever. Like, what do you think of these kind of things?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And when it comes to sales, the thing that you have to remember, and again, art and artists are not necessarily natural salespeople or even good at selling in the first place. That's not their focus, right? Like I could take any one of these artists and I could give their work to a salesperson, like a practiced salesperson, and they would sell it for 100 times more, no problem. Why? Because they understand human psychology. They know what market they're going after. They understand what that market wants, and they say the things that trigger the buying impulse in that particular buyer. When you're talking to an artist about selling, you're talking to them about something that in most cases they haven't really thought much about because they're not in that mode. And when you're in creative mode and when you're in, I've got to get this thing that's inside me, outside of me mode, the last thing you're thinking about in most cases is, oh, what do I have to say to someone to make them buy this, right? Or what do I have to say to someone to have them see value in this thing? It's two different skill sets altogether. And so I think the greatest skill set any of us can learn is sales, no matter what you're doing. And this is evidenced by artist after artist who has been successful. Like Banksy, for example, is a master at selling stuff. He has his whole little organization called the Rat Patrol that like validates all of his art and all this kind of stuff. And he's been mysterious behind the scenes for years and this and that and the other thing. But make no mistake, he's like masterfully selling his stuff and creating mystery and exclusivity around it using his anonymity and the Rat Patrol. you've seen this many, many times with names that you know. Warhol did this. He's a master at marketing, not necessarily a master at creating. In fact, he had factories of people who would mass produce his work, right? So I think the myth of the starving artist that somehow stumbles across, you know, some massive opportunity in the collecting world and then makes $1 million is very, very rare. You know, like the number of Beeples that we have in crypto, to my knowledge, is exactly one, but we've got way more artists than one, right? So your chances of selling a piece of work for $69.5 million are pretty slim. So you might want to start thinking about like what that looks like. And even with Beeple, you know, like he didn't sell it on fucking, you know, Crypto X. That went through an auction house, you know, it literally went through an auction house, and it was 5,000 days of work, you know, like 5,000 days of taking photos. And, you know, that's what it was. It was a culmination of many years of work, right? So I think at the end of the day, you have to decide what market you're going after, learn how to communicate it, and then be willing to stand in the fire when someone doesn't buy, right? Fortunately, with Goodfellows, we've been able to sell out pretty much everything that we've done. Even through October, the first mint actually failed. A lot of people don't realize this, but for whatever reason, the very first mint failed at 17. And so I had to go back in and manually create the last 4 pieces in a different collection. But that's the only mint that didn't sell out, and it didn't sell out not because people didn't want it, but because the mint literally failed at 17 for some reason. I have no idea why. I couldn't figure it out. Tech support couldn't figure it out, but it just failed, whatever, right? But in all of those mints, like I was willing for those mints to not sell out. Like, and you have to be willing for that to be the case. So if someone doesn't want your stuff, right, or if your stuff doesn't sell, that's okay. You have to realize that's okay, and you have to be okay with that, because if you're not, what you're doing is you're telling the world that you're insecure about what you're doing. And nothing, literally nothing, scares money away faster than insecurity, desperation. Like money will literally jump out of your pocket and run away if you show up desperate and you show up like needy and like a little baby, right? That's the last thing that's going to attract people to you, and wealthy people or money or any of those things. So, I mean, you have to not need it. It's just like when you need a loan from the bank. If you need the loan, you ain't going to get it. But if you want the loan, you'll get it, right? So when you go to the bank, you better not need the money, because they ain't going to give it to you. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think many artists who are new to the space have that kind of psychological tension, you know, like affordable art, to create affordable art versus undervaluing labor. So if they actually start as an artist, I feel like they want to have some sort of accessibility to, you know, to create a group of collectors and get to know to, you know, to the people, get to know in the space, and then they feel like, okay, if people start collecting my stuff for a couple of bucks, maybe one day I can lift the price, right? This is probably, you know, the wrong approach in my opinion. But what would you recommend artists to do? Like, would you say, if you want to be an artist in the NFT space, you should start learning marketing before, you know, selling your art, or what would you recommend?
Well, the first thing that I would recommend is, if you're already an artist, is ask for more money, right? Like start high and stay high, and don't give a fuck if it sells or not. That's number one. So you need posture, which is a big part of sales. You need to be confident in the work that you're doing. If you're not confident in your work, no one else will be. And this is one of those things. It's just a universal truth. It doesn't matter, you know, what industry you're in, you know, like if you know, you could talk about even in sports, right? Like the star striker on your favorite football team in Europe, right? He's not going to be some guy who thinks he can't make the shot. It's going to be some guy who knows he can make the shot if he's given the opportunity. And that's the guy people want. And that's the guy people cheer for, right? And it's the same thing for the salesman who goes for, you know, the high-rise real estate as opposed to a single-family home. You know, that guy is going for the high-rise sale, in the multiple billions of dollars, that's a different guy than the guy who's trying to sell a single family home. Very different guy, you know. And so a big part of it is posturing and understanding the marketplace. But you can't start low and expect to come, to raise the price. It's not going to happen, because all you're doing is creating a reputation for selling cheap shit. And if you create a reputation for selling cheap shit, then that's what people are going to expect. Now, you might get lucky and you might have a collector find you and say, oh, wow, shit, I really love this. Like, this is a beautiful piece, and I will pay you more for it. But you're going to be more likely to find that person if you start in those circles where you're asking whatever you feel like it's worth from the get-go and just waiting for a collector to find you, But what I would honestly do, if selling art was my goal, is I would learn to communicate to the collectors that I want to attract whatever message they need to hear to trigger them to take a look at my stuff and perhaps trigger a sale. And so in most cases, that's going to be exclusivity. It's going to be uniqueness. It's going to be something that gives them status, right? Like, I'm not anti-Tezos, for example, or any of these chains that are doing like low budget artwork. I'm not anti any of them. I think they're all fantastic for what they are. Like, they are the Walmart of art, basically. And the thing that you have to realize as an artist is there's never a shortage of low prices. There's a shortage of high prices. And the shortage of high prices exists because there's a shortage of high price buyers. So which buyer do you want? Do you want the one that's going to argue with you over $5? Or do you want the one who, it might take you 3 or 4 months to find, but is going to pay you more than you would have earned, selling all your editions in just one sale of a one of one? And for me, I'd rather have the one person and then learn to cater to that person and give them the exclusivity that they need, right? Because that's a much easier thing to manage, rather than a bunch of low-end buyers who are constantly complaining because your price was $6 instead of $5.50.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you gotta know your value, right? I mean, this is basically what we did back then when we started with the Boss Ordinals, right? Like, we came to a space that was kind of used to, get stuff for free and shit, and mint for free and get everything cheap. And we started and said, like, we will have 100 bosses. Everyone costs 100 USD. If you want one, take one. If not, like, don't. We did not think 1 second to reduce prices, to tell people like, hey, you maybe want the boss for $20 or $30 or 40. And no, we just stick to it. And we said, if we do not mint out, we'll just keep them in the treasury, right? Like, we kept our bosses rather than, dumping them into the market. So what happened in the end, people, I think I checked Magic Eden like a couple of weeks ago. People paid like multiple $100s for a boss. I think I've seen bosses go for $200-300.
Mm-hmm.
And this is crazy, right? But this is like knowing your value and posture yourself. So I think it's pretty important. Like, we can also shout out Jilly. Actually, Jilly is also one of the people who has been in this space for quite some time with her Fame Lady project, and she created a couple of Halloween pieces, I think 12 or 13 pieces, and sells them for 0.13 ETH, which is around $400 to $500.
Mm-hmm.
I think they sold 7 so far, but I bet they never spent a minute and thought about reducing prices to or that I don't think they had any fear of not selling. So this is positioning, and this is very, very good if you do that for the reasons you just mentioned, right?
100%. I love the fact that Jilly and Fame did that, right? Like, they said, here's the price, and the price is the price. And, I don't know ultimately what will happen with those. If it takes them 2 or 5 or 20 years or 20 minutes to mint out, doesn't matter. The fact that they're posturing like this is what we're doing, and this is the message they're sending to the marketplace, is a good thing. And you can see, like, they could have done a bunch of like low end work, right, and sold a bunch of low end pieces, but they did, 13, which is a special number for them, and they priced them at 0.13 or 0.1313 ETH, right? And that's what they're rolling with, and that's the way it should be. So if they sell or not sell, it doesn't matter. Like the people who buy them will appreciate them because they actually had to sacrifice something to get them, and that's the thing. That's what matters most.
Absolutely. So, yeah, to sum up, what do you think is the best way to start when I start tomorrow? I think I just learned how to draw overnight now, and I'll start my first Tezos NFT tomorrow morning. What's like your advice? Probably not start on Tezos, right?
Well, I mean, you can go on any chain that you want. The question is, what do you want as a result, right? If you're looking for a high-end result, Tezos probably isn't the best place to go. Drip is definitely not the place to go. I mean, if you want a high-end buyer, you need to go where high-end buyers hang out, and it's not going to be the Walmart of art, right? So at the end of the day, if that's what you want, go for it. If that's not what you want, look in other places, and then learn how to communicate that value. Because if you think that you're worth it and someone else doesn't, the gap that you're trying to cross there is a communication one. Okay, so this is what I think I'm worth. These buyers over here don't seem to think the same way. What do I need to communicate to them so that they understand the value in this particular piece, right? Like if like you use Jilly as an example, like the 13, right? Like if I didn't understand the story behind the 13 witches, then the piece would make less sense to me and have less value, right? But because I understand what she's trying to communicate, and the 13th piece was signed, and in terms of the October piece, and the 21's piece was signed, and it was also a variant. Like when I look at the piece and I see, where the tattoos are placed, and I understand the story, now all of a sudden it's more valuable than it would be if I just randomly saw it on my timeline. So I think a lot of these pieces need to come with, especially for higher end collectors, they need to come with a story, and that story is what people buy. And then the piece just becomes a representation of the story. And this is true of all collectibles. Like I've posted a couple artwork cards from G.I. Joe figures, and those G.I. Joe figures, when they came out, like I remember being a kid and just like saving my allowance, my quarters, my little pennies and whatever I could possibly save to go to the store to buy one for like $2 or $3, whatever it was back then, And so that little card art and the figure itself is a representation of that memory, which is a representation of the story that I'm telling myself about that experience, right? And that's why it's valuable, and that's one of the reasons that I still collect action figures today, because it takes me to that place where I'm on the hunt. I get to find these cool things, And that's one of the reasons I collect the 7s inside the 21s, because, it gives me that feeling of going after a thing, like finding a thing, and I love that feeling.
As far as I know, you do not have all the 7s yet, right?
Yeah, thank you for that, by the way. I appreciate you holding on to a few of them for me.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too easy to get all the numbers, right? Like Mark needs to, he needs to have that unique position of owning all the 12s as the only one. But yeah, you mentioned the stories. I mean, you can also mention Maria, who built a pretty cool story with the October piece as well, creating a matching piece, which was such a great thing, right? Even business-wise for upselling, let's be honest, right? Like it was so great. It added to the story, which was so cool. I love both pieces. And yeah, great job, right?
Yeah, what Maria did was perfect. I mean, it reflected a maturity in the marketplace, right? So she had two pieces that we sort of thought were going to be like a matched pair, kind of like what we've done, but they weren't. They were like matched pair of ideas. So like the dominant sub idea, sexual idea, and the way that she promoted it was fantastic, because she had the 21's piece drop, and then she had the Muse piece that matched it up for auction on the same day. And this is brilliant marketing, because while people are excited about the idea, you give them something that they can latch onto. And now you've given them an experience, right? Like the experience of buying that piece or bidding on that piece is something that no one will forget, even if they didn't get it. Because it's going to be like, okay, cool, I was in the running and, Mark beat me out or whatever. STC buys everything, or, whatever the case may be. Like, they had that experience of going after it. And who knows, like a year from now, maybe that piece comes up for sale, or that piece trades hands or something like that, and they've got the 21s piece they want to pair it with, right? And so just because someone collects something that you didn't collect, that doesn't mean the story's over, and it doesn't mean that you can't acquire it in the future. So not only is it about the story of, getting it that first time, but it's about the process that plays out over the span of however long it takes for you to satisfy your goal, So there's a lot of different angles and stories that are just beautiful about collecting. Like, collecting is an art form. I've said that 1,000 times, but people don't realize it's an art form. It's a beautiful thing. And, like negotiating with people through the contest for the phone, right? Like trying to negotiate with this person to get that, or negotiate with that person to get this. These are all art forms, and these are things that people won't soon forget.
Absolutely, man. And this is probably what I loved most about. Bless you, man. This is probably what I loved most about October. These little get-togethers every day, and everyone was trying to get his number. This was awesome, and we have another event planned for the end of the year, which is going to be great, of course. But before that, there's actually a drop coming on Friday, November 14. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, and we planned a special drop for Friday. We will be joined by Jason's friend Patrick, who runs a retreat for traumatized veterans. And he will speak a little bit about, what these guys go through. And I think they have these ceremonies, right, where maybe you can speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've spoken a lot about it on Spaces already, so I won't go too deep into it. But basically, they run a retreat for traumatized veterans who are dealing with trauma from, whether it be training or battlefield injuries, or even seeing their friends blown up or shot or, mutilated in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, they deal with a lot of stuff. The thing that they do is they take these guys out of the traditional medical system, at least for a weekend, and they give them the opportunity to be with a group of people who've had similar experiences, and they take them through an ayahuasca experience. And for those of you guys who are familiar with ayahuasca, the active ingredient is DMT, and DMT is sort of a mild hallucinogen, and it gives you, you take from it whatever you want to take from it. It's a meditative experience, and you're going to take a specific intention into the ceremony. But it basically, these guys come out and they feel more grounded. They feel more at one with their world and their surroundings. They feel more like they can deal with their everyday lives, and they have another set of tools or another set of experiences that they can draw from when things get tough. Not to mention the camaraderie of the experience, which is something that a lot of these guys miss when they come out of the service, right? Because that brotherhood is really forged in blood. And I mean, when you have something that's that deeply held, you're not going to find that in civilian life in most cases. And a lot of men struggle just from lack of interaction and brotherhood, because again, men are disposable in society, right? It's Chris Rock said it best: only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. A man has to earn his love, and he earns it via his production. And this is a heavy burden for most men to handle. And so while we, can jump on the bandwagon and talk about the future being feminine, it's not. The future is strong men and strong women working together to create a future. And men have been ignored, especially soldiers, for years on end, and they're not treated well. And so this is just one way of helping men who've served their country, or any vet really who've served their country, male or female, get through these experiences. It just so happens that most of the suicides come from men, something to the tune of 20 to 22 per day on average. And who knows what the global statistic is, but at the end of the day, men are basically, again, perceived as disposable. And because they're perceived as disposable, the services are not set up for them. Even the ones that they attend aren't really productive. And so these experiences have started to have an impact on people who've been open to giving them a shot. So that's kind of what Patrick's all about. But I mean, I'm sure he can explain it better than me. I've done one ayahuasca weekend. I've done 2 ceremonies. And for me, it was a different thing altogether. And my experience has no bearing on what these guys' experience would be. My intentions were different and my understanding was different. So I think Patrick explaining is probably the best thing we could possibly have happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to get these kind of things firsthand from someone who's experiencing that, every day. Looking forward to Friday, looking forward to speak to him, looking forward to the piece that you're going to create. Finally, another mint day, another mint party. So yeah, a lot of good things to come. I hope everyone is going to join us to this important event. In my opinion, it's very important to speak about that kind of stuff as well. And myself, like I have no. Let me just say no, not at all. Like no real. I've never really been in touch with these kind of things like ayahuasca or any kind of psychedelics. So it's new for me, but very, very exciting. Looking forward to that. And yeah, of course, towards the end of the month, we will also have the animated batch. And next month, we're going to finish the year strong with the event that I just mentioned. And yeah, a lot of great stuff to come. And for now, we focus on Friday, Veterans Day tomorrow. Is that anything you guys celebrate? Like, will you have some sort of turkey and potatoes or something? I know you're on a cut. You don't eat potatoes, right?
No, it's not like Thanksgiving. It's just it's usually just a very small sort of a celebration. They did a parade here in town while we were out of town for the veterans, and in town here we have a unique situation in that we have a veterans memorial, and the veterans memorial is 5 separate pylons representing the 5 branches of service. And they descend from high to low. So there's a tallest one and a shortest one, and they descend in order. And at the top of each of the pylons is a hole, and that hole goes down through all 5 pylons. And at 11:11, on 11:11, at 11:11, the sun shines through all 5 of those pylons in that specific angle, and it illuminates the Great Seal of the U.S. on the ground in front of the smallest pylon. And this obviously is an incredible, mathematical sort of creation. But there'll be a ceremony at the memorial, at the Veterans Day, at the Veterans Memorial, and there'll be veterans speaking, and they'll probably have a band, and they'll probably do, all kinds of just memorial sort of speeches about that particular time and honoring those people. And so we do that every year. And we're fortunate enough to have that memorial right here in town, which is really cool.
Awesome, man. Yeah, sounds interesting. Hope you will have a good time. Will you watch the parade tomorrow?
The parade was this weekend, so we were out of town for that.
Oh,
But we'll probably head down to the memorial and just, hang out with some folks and just take in the ceremony.
yeah, sounds pretty cool. Awesome. So yeah, looking forward to speak about all that we mentioned on Friday with Patrick, and we will be here for you guys every Tuesday. This is when the episodes get released, and back to our regular schedule. As I said, looking forward to Friday. I hope you guys have a great week. And Jason, any final words for the audience?
No, I don't think so. Absolutely have a fantastic week. Alex and I are going to be elevating the podcast shortly. We're looking into getting some video going, as well as formalizing the format, getting more into media and marketing. So keep an eyeball out for that. We'll share the show as much as possible, and we'll go from there. But yeah, keep an eyeball out, and we'll continue to create great content to the best of our ability and continue to serve the market to the best of our ability. And we hope you guys have a fantastic week.
Awesome. So have a good one, everyone, and see you guys on Friday. Bye bye.